time for Belizean Workers Rights Reasoning. It's season 2, episode 1. Season 1 had 15 episodes. And this is where Sister Yaya Marie Coleman, that's me, and the co-host Dean Flowers, who is the president of the Public Service Union, will be reasoning tonight about mindsets for the first half hour. And then in the second half hour, Brother Dean will lead that segment. It's the people's mic time. Brother Dean, good night. How are you being? Good night, Sister Tricia and Sister Musila Cynthia Pitts.
Good night, Sister
Good
Yaya.
night.
Glad to be here once again. Good night, Sister Tricia. Thanks for taking the time out once again to host us. And our usual, one of our usual participants, Sister Cynthia Pitts. Good night again, Sister Pitts. And good night to those who may be watching us on YouTube across the globe. Thanks for being in our presence, and feel free to join the conversation.
Indeed, we are on YouTube, so you could watch this reasoning at your convenience and the past 15 as well. And Brother Dean, when I contacted you and said we're talking about mindsets as it relates to Belizean workers, what were your thoughts?
And the immediate thing that came to my mind, Yaya, is
I'm not hearing you clearly.
oh, sorry. Let me just. Are you? Yeah. So I'm trying this new camera, so I'm hoping.
I'm seeing you well. It's your audio that I wasn't hearing clearly, but I could hear you better now when you leaned forward.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, when you introduced or introduced the word mindset, or the words mindset, you know, and of course, the topic for tonight is decolonizing the mindset of workers. It's difficult to explain exactly what came to my mind immediately, because more and more as I ventured into some reading, I realized that decolonization is such a broad topic in that it is applicable to almost every single individual. Yeah. But what's ironic about that is that most of us cannot relate to it. And if you speak to some people, they don't think that they are a victim of colonization. And so in terms of the mindset now, it shows me, or it highlights that there's a lot of work and education to be done, not by people, but by me, by ourselves, to understand that a lot of what we're experiencing today, the injustices, the division, all of these are a result of the colonization that we went through. And so we're all here suffering as victims and wondering what to do about it. And so I look forward to hearing from you tonight and from the participants in terms of how do we move now once we get that knowledge. And I think the conversation tonight would highlight that, okay, we have a problem, quote unquote, a problem. So what are some of the steps that we can take to liberate our minds?
It's a process. It's a process. So it's to understand that this will take a period of time. It takes active people participation. So it really doesn't matter how much information we share, how many books we recommend, how often we reason. If the individuals engaging or listening do not have a desire to take ownership, to reflect on themselves and say, am I living my best life? Even though I've been doing whatever it is that I've been doing, how do I feel when I make myself be still and I don't make my feelings numb or I disconnect from my reality? And when we're still, I was listening to Bell Hooks today among other things, besides being an amazing author and writer and novelist and feminist, she said something that I thought was, I know I've heard her say it before, but to hear her tonight say that learning to read is revolutionary. And that a lot of our Black and brown brothers, for many of them, the first time they get to be still and be by themselves is when they're incarcerated. So that's why you find a number of brothers, sisters too, particularly brothers, may come out with a level of awareness because for the first time they're able to be still. And then if they know how to read, or if there's some kind of program that would help them to learn to read, it's a part of your liberation process that you need to actively engage in it. And understanding colonization to me that a single narrative, the oppressors are primarily, you could have people who look like us who oppress us, and that happens, right? When we talk about colonization, we're talking about European colonizers who, unlike any other group of people on the planet, kidnapped African, trafficked them. One of my sisters said they were the first terrorists, looked at us as chattel enslavement. We weren't looked at as human beings for hundreds of years. And these are people who they were the first contributors to world civilization. Before European people in the early 1400s, the Portuguese went on the continent and kidnapped our families. And then they told a particular storyline. And that particular storyline that they told is where colonization came in, because their conversation was, this is the only truth, this is the only story, and anything other than this is inferior. And so on the threat of death, African people, for example, were told you cannot hold on to the things that sustained you, because you had people from the continent directly, people who came from the continent through Jamaica, people who had some of their value systems still. And that's what hold people, your values, your deities, your rituals, your rules as gender, your food. Those are the things that sustained you and gave you identity. And so on the threat of death, people were forced to assimilate. And so when you hear the word, for example, Creole, it's an assimilation process. It's a mixture. It's African is not good, European is good. And people began to see that the more you assimilate to this particular value system, your life could be less hard, right? And so when you keep hearing that over and over again, then you buy into that without even questioning to some extent that when someone introduces something different, you go into cognitive dissonance where you're not even able to hear it. You go into total denial. You don't want to hear it. And so that is what a church state system does. It creates people who will be employees, who don't think, who just do what they're told, and that's it. So at the point of, our African ancestors always resisted. We had intricate systems. We were very organized. People still use their spiritual values. And so there was never a time when we didn't know we were intelligent people. For survival, some people made certain choices, right? So at the point, for example, before we came into the 50s, where the political narrative is, that's where the movement started. When you do the research, the movement, a significant movement was in the 30s, and that's where we had political consciousness, primarily Black-skinned people. So because they were not the people who were instrumental in the political process to where we moved into party politics and organizing for self-government, those leaders were deeply colonized and deeply committed, for example, to the Catholic Church. So their priorities were deeply influenced, and they had loyalties to people other than Belizean people, primarily, such as the church. So when we were born into those mindsets, first and foremost, we're given British names. Some of us don't even question it. If you went to Europe and most of the European people had indigenous African names, I would often say to people, what would you think of those people? We don't even think that. We just accept these European names lock, stock, and barrel and don't even question it. And so that's how things that are not good for our beings become normalized. The language that we speak is a colonizer language, that we dream in the colonizer's language. So if that's the only thing you have, and for generations, you feel that that is the only thing that you know to be true, then for many people, and after almost 40 years of flag independence, because we're not independent with Elizabeth II as head of state, then for some people who have lived long enough, some of us are saying, something's wrong here. How could we be here at 40 years, for some people, worse than we've ever been? And a lot of it has to do with our mindset. So we're not taught to be courageous. We're not taught to be confident. We're not taught that we can solve our own challenges. We're not taught that. And when we learn who African people are, for example, and we know what they contributed towards civilization, it's like finding out that you had an extremely wealthy family member. And even though you don't have the money for the people, just knowing that your family came from wealth, real wealth, it gives you a sense of empowerment that somebody in my bloodline had the capability, had the ability to think, to create. I can do it too. Good night, Melina. Melina is one of our new youths that reached out to me, and so we'll be seeing more of Melina. And so, yes, that is very important, that we have examples within our communities, within our histories, that there are other narratives. So we are primarily African and indigenous people. We don't hear about the Maya people resistance. We don't hear the British writing to England, to Jamaica, and say, send help. We're going to lose this territory. These African people are organized. Those are the narratives we hear. We hear one story over and over again. Shola to Shola, Flowers Bank 14, 10th of September, and we defend it. Lock, stock, and back, but that shows the level of colonized mind that we have. And then we get these Western European degrees, and now we think that we have the authority on the knowledge. So I've been talking for a while, Brother Dean. During this first half hour, Brother Dean and I reason, and then at 7:30, we open up for the participants. So Brother Dean, you heard anything different? Anything new that I just shared? Any new ideas came to mind?
Not necessarily that anything new, but for me, I think that I would want to see, and I think what I appreciated from your comments.
You need to come closer to the mic.
I said, I think what I can certainly appreciate from your comments is that decolonizing the mind is a process. And I appreciate that, because sometimes when we identify a problem or a situation, we want a quick fix. But I think your comments highlight that, look, this is something that was forced on us. This is something that was taught, and deconstructing that will be a process, as you said, and I'm hoping that for many people it won't be a lifelong process, but nonetheless a process. And I think that I'm hoping that tonight we can perhaps touch on some of the ways that we can change our thinking because of how we were colonized and which influence now the way we think. And it even affects our ability to really empower ourselves to believe that, look, all men were created equal. We know that, or at least we're taught that, but we don't live that. And we even accept the fact that some, as George Orwell said, some animals are more equal than others. And for some of us, we accept that easily. Like it's not an issue, even though the Bible teaches, okay, all men were created equal, or whatever teaching is, all men were created equal. But when we live our lives, we easily accept that some men are more equal than us. And we don't, and many people like yourself would question that and challenge that. But the reality is that the majority of us don't. To the point whereby I saw in the newscast this week a young black brother who has a barber shop, and he beside that barber shop he has this nail salon now, and he has this tennis shoe store, or this business whereby he imports and import. I mean, people could order through him, right, from the States. But I look at this young black brother, probably in his 20s, and I was amazed that at such a young age, this youth could see and understand that, look, all the opportunities that exist for a privileged white male or a privileged Indian exist for me too. I just need to figure it out. And so I mean, that story really, I was really proud to see that story, and I hope that more and more people can understand that, look, you don't have to be the worker in a store. You could actually own a store. And especially for those individuals who have the skills that causes these capitalists to make money. Look, if we could only come together, speak to people with equal mind like you, you could actually create the kind of world where this colonial system, which has now, as I said, resulted in a capitalist type system, which continues to oppress us, because in reality we oppress. We oppress, we talk about it, but we accept it. And we do little, next to nothing to change it. That's the reality. We don't have people of resistance. I really don't know why. I really don't know why. But like I said, maybe I'm wrong by saying I don't know why. I know why. We were taught to be subjective. We were taught to obey. We were taught to not rebel. So I mean, it's not that I don't know why. It's just that now that our eyes are open, or at least half open, that this system of governance isn't working for us. How do we change that? How do we come together and change that? I think that's always my question.
Well, I would say that people you can't give way and a have. So there's no way, and I think last week I ended and I said, why do people vote certain people in leadership when those people who they voted have not had a track record of being leaders in their own lives, much less to lead anybody? So if you're not a disciplined person for your own life, how could you expect to lead anybody in a meaningful way? Like that's like where I said ought to be common sense, right? And then for sure, the level of colonization, we tend to repeat because it's the only, you listen to most people at Belize when they quote people, like usually a white person and they quote. As if nobody else that ever quote will have one total different mindset. And that show, like, I mean, I don't care who, all walks of life. 8 out of 10 times when they quote, that one white person, and 8 out of 10 times that one white male in the quote. As if people are color right and have one total different worldview of living in harmony with nature, for example, and showing examples within culture where people had a different worldview and it worked for them until the colonizer came with their singular narrative. And I say to people, in having an analysis, I know I don't really give European people no vibes. I just, they are really a non-factor in my life. Within the context that we're having the conversation, to understand why we're colonized mentally, we have to look at the root of what the issue is for us to solve it. So one of my biggest challenge, I Belize, so I talk within Belize, is that the people that I often organize within Belize have a particular mindset. And like I knock my head, now I'm like, yo, peace and blessings to them people. Because I've found that I could organize with people outside of Belize who have a different mindset, and I don't have that level of tug of war, forget. It's just because when you come to the table with a level of awareness, with a level of knowledge, you understand that this is not about me as an individual, that we have a responsibility to continue work that people made great sacrifices for. And so you don't do things oftentimes the traditional way, but people get very stuck in a traditional way of doing. You know, tea, dinner, tea? You get up that morning, you drink tea. 12 o'clock, you eat dinner. Sunday, I eat rice and beans, chicken. And people don't even think. Then just get up out of the bed, kneel long, put their hands together. Now, even this, put their hands. I say, you ever think, but why you put your hands together? So when I saw people pray like this, and I asked the people that would pray like this, want to pray with the hand open, they say, how you receive what the Creator has sent for you? How you release when I want? So symbols are a higher level of reasoning. But because I tell we do that, we just do it. And then fall into this, for question the Creator. Who tell you that you believe it? Who tell you, like, I ask people, your sacred books, who write there in a matter? How could it not matter? Any book you read, it don't matter to you who write it. And so these are the things that I'm talking about that we should question. Good night, Kebe. Question everybody, question yourself. Why do I think this way? Is this working for me? Why we keep the thing when we send out the work? When you hear there's a number on your ballot, there's no privacy in voting. Why you just keep going to the polls and you don't want to hear it, why? Why do you just accept it? Why?
It's all about.
And all of we guilty of it.
Yeah, like I said, we are born into a system that teaches submission. Right? So the education system is spent the first 8 years of your education of your education life being indoctrinated. It's like, even if, I mean, I could compare, it might not be a good comparison, but I will still compare a human being with a dog. When you get a dog 1 month old, you can get that dog to do any and everything from that 1 month old until the day dead. And it's the same thing with a human being. I mean, the difference now is that we have a mind and we could now think. And so when we get the opportunity to participate in these forums and we take the time out now to read and research, which technology has now discourages us from doing. I mean, you could say research, but reading, reading the way how things is set up right now, reading is one of the hardest things to get anybody to do when growing up. At least I'm privileged to say that when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, I read a lot of books, but even now, I'm just getting back to that stage whereby I realized that, I got to get back to picking up a book in my spare time.
But Brother Dean, people read. You have social media, people read all of their text, their WhatsApp, their stream, their up on Facebook, they got Twitter.
What are they reading? Are they reading educational materials that can help liberate the mind? No.
In the next 5 minutes, when we open up to the participants, but we found what the participants then read.
Yeah.
And I agree. One of the things Bell Hooks said was that because many of us come from working class families, and depending on where we were born, at least I know this is true for me, the public library was a very vital part of our community life. We got library cards, and you went to the library and you borrowed library book. I mean, it was a big part of, so reading was a way of living. And then because we didn't have TV, we had radio. We were awesome listeners because we listened to radio. And that's how you get your information.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the social values have changed. It has.
Yeah. So let me put this out there. We were our primary target, or our primary target is workers, right? And we know for a fact that workers are subjected to all kinds of conditions, both in the public and private sector. And the same kind of submission and obedience that you see in the wider public is the same thing you see in the workers' mindset within their working environment. They come to work on time, they do what they got to do regardless of the conditions that they're being subjected to. They deal with the harsh reality of working for certain employers, and then they go home because it's in their mind, this job is what put food on the table. But they were never taught, as I stated earlier, how to be independent of a job. Because when you go to school and tell you go to school to get a good job. So talk to me about how do we teach people the value of, I mean.
Okay, so again, this is our active process, right? So until you come, until you choose, like, listen, I'm tired, I'm frustrated with this process. Like, what else can I do? I have to make money, so I'm going to do this thing. But I start to think of a plan B of how I could get out of this. Or else I see that this not work for me. So I knew at a young age, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad was a surveyor. He worked for himself. The people in my community, many of them were married or lived together. The women stayed home. Very few women were working. So for me, growing up, finding a primary school, I don't see in my mind, if you're a woman, you end up being one wife, somebody one nurse, or one teacher. Primary school, I got that socially. And from primary school, I make up my mind. I don't want to do none of that thing there. No, I didn't know what I would want to do, but I was damn sure none of that thing that's what I want to do. Nobody didn't tell me that. I didn't hear nobody say that. But from living and observing, I knew that wasn't going to, no, that was anti the social norm. The 1029. So for example, at age 55, I don't cook and I have no interest in cooking. Now, it wasn't that my family didn't try because of this is what a woman didn't try, but I resisted. So I tell people I've always been conscious, even when I didn't realize I was conscious, but I know, no. Not because I ban, I want to say I'm a woman, who don't want to tell me why I do. And I bucked the system the whole way. It's 1029. So my short answer to you, Brother Dean, is that people have to come to their own realization, and it's lived experience that would, if you're paying attention, if you develop a level of confidence from just living, I was afraid to ride on bicycle, I fall long enough, I get up to the land, I still afraid to ride bike, but I have enough confidence to If I want to get on a bike, I could ride from one lane to the next. So it's in doing and falling and scraping it that you build confidence. It's 10:30 last award. It's 7:30. It's the people's mic time. Brother Dean, this is your segment.
Yeah, I think you are being unfair. However, when you reference yourself, and we must applaud, of course, the fact that from a young age, from an early age, your level of consciousness, your level of awareness, and what you want and not want to do for yourself was there. But the reality is it's not the same for most people. And you know, and in a limited reading, when you send this topic, and I think I stated it earlier, not only a Black people issue, it spans across race. It spans across race. The issues that are affecting Black people affect Spanish people, Maya people, Garifuna people, and other ethnicity. So while you had an experience that helped you reach this level of consciousness, others don't. And you said they have to come to that realization. But I also think that there must be something that those who have come to the realization can do. And I mean, forum like this helps, of course, you know, talking about it. But I'll invite Sister Melina, Sister Pitts to jump in whenever they see fit, since we're now in the second segment. But my thought process is there must be something each of us that understand that something wrong with this picture could do to help shape that change and change the mindset. Because like I said, it's all in the mind. Were people mentally enslaved? Yeah, were people mentally enslaved? You know, sadly, it's the reality. And how do we break those chains? You know? By making them understand they have to put in the work. So,
hi. On this issue, well, yeah, I'm Melina. I'm 27 years old, and I don't have much life experience, but I have some kind of experience with what the topic is talking about. I have seen certain people not speaking up. I personally, in my own family life, I have not spoken up and against like the status quo, and it's very hard. I think that if you believe that you have the right to, you do. So some people feel entitled to that, and you see that in society. You have a class of people that feels entitled to speak up, and they won't do that. You know, they want to demand better customer service. They want to demand better at any business. You know, they want to put themselves out there, and there are people who are more submissive. And I work and I hire people, and I've seen this too, where um, sometimes workers do withstand more than they have to because they don't feel like they have an option.
yeah.
And what we try to do is engage them more and talk about things and find out what are the conditions that they have to deal with on the ground level, and let them know that there should be open transparency. And I think that on the part of business people, for example, they have to do more of that. But also, yes, people who are not used to speaking out, they should change their mindset about their rights and what they are entitled to as well, because everyone is entitled to a certain amount of right. You know, you're entitled to good working wages, you're entitled to a better working environment, a safe working environment. There's a lot of things that we do accept as the status quo in general. And it's very hard to break, but I think it has to do with how you value yourself in the community, and the things that I think more in my generation and younger were exposed to a lot of Americanized ideals, were exposed to a lot of mental health issues, honestly. And then people are dealing with their own family issues that adds, domestic violence, child abuse, and so on. And it's hard to break these things. I do think that more as a community, we could do more to help each other out to break this way of thinking. But it is also hard to change somebody. You have to be willing um, to change your mindset. But I think that, like, on an institutional level, we should make certain teachings more mainstream, or we should try to hold family life more, more sacred, being able to have that contact. I mean, I know during COVID-19 times it's really hard too, because we can't be out, engaging with the community face to face. But I think that's very important too, that you have to know um, what the issues are. And right now, I mean, we get these things out, but everything is online. And um, unfortunately, that's where we are right now. But those are my thoughts. And concerning the reading, I think that a lot of people think they're only valued because that's what they see. That's what they see on the news. That's what they see all the time, that, in these poor communities, there are a lot of gang violence, there's a lot of police brutality, and that's all you see. You don't see stories like what you mentioned, business owners, young entrepreneurs coming up and doing their own thing. And I think that's also what we need more of. We need more of the positive stories, and stories uplifting people, to show them, this is your value.
Yeah, excellent points, Sister Melina. And I just want to add to that where changing one's mindset is concerned, we all know. I look at what happened today when the minister said we're going to pass an aside that restricts access to all public buildings if you don't get this vaccine test, this COVID-19 vaccine, sorry. And of course, there'll always be the pros and the cons, right? And then those who really don't care. And people say no, but then that would be infringing on my right to choose no, because now you deprive me of perhaps service that I might need because I don't want to conform to your demand for me to get a vaccine. So now, like, I'm looking at this group of people who realize that something is wrong here, but they do not understand that, or they don't seem to understand that change can be effected, or that such a legislation or a practice can be stopped or can be influenced. But they're looking for somebody to take up that fight. So they're like, we see the problem, but we have a difficulty adjusting the way we think. And when we adjust the way we think, we're able to then make the adjustment that we can make the adjustment within ourselves, but we can also make the necessary contribution to effecting the solution to bring about the results that we want. So, yeah, so I don't know if you want to add anything, Sister Fitz.
Yeah. Firstly, I think that we all have to acknowledge that we are in a system where the purpose is not to have us question anything. That is the system. The system is like that. But a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know or recognize that we live in a system where it is set up that you don't question. And so that is the first thing. Because if you don't know that, then you don't even recognize that you are not questioning anything. Because you are just living in a system that you don't question. And that is enforced by the family sometimes. You will have the odd person here and there, probably like Yaya, who from a child knew that she didn't want animal. And if Yaya examines why she thought like that, she might find that there was something growing up that happened as a child in her family, and that made her begin to think like that. So I am thinking the first thing, you have a person who doesn't even know that they should be questioning. They don't know that because the system was geared that they should not question. And they are in a family that as a child, you were never encouraged to ask questions, because we know we have the Creole phrase, or the phrase, I don't know if it is in any other ethnic group, that you should be seen and not heard. And from the child is small, the mother only has to give a certain eye. You only have to look, and the child knows he's supposed to shut him out. Then the child goes to school, and that is further reinforced. Then the child only asks questions when the teacher allows the child to ask questions or to put up the hand. And so the whole structures are there for you not to question, but you don't know that that is what is happening to you. So the worker gets a job. And when people say that people accept things, I don't readily accept that people accept things. People don't know that they are accepting anything. They think that that is the way that it should be. That's the way that it should be. So if there is the desire to get people to be aware, conscious, question things, that questioning too has to be that their lives will be improved. You don't want to question for what? For what am I questioning? I must be questioning because I see some good by doing it. And not just one question for question's sake. So people have to be taught or things placed before them that they begin to think in a different way. You have to begin to think a different way. And how does that difference in thinking come about? By somebody showing you or exposing you to something. Exposing you, showing you, and leaving you to make up your mind and to come to your own understanding. Because it is also the way that things are exposed or told to you. You have to come to your own understanding, and it cannot be forced. So workers and people who live in poverty, I think that they think that this is my luck in life. This is what I was born in. This is my luck in life. And yes, I want it to change. I want it to change. Nobody wants to live in poverty. I wish it to change. But how? How can I change this? Maybe the young man sees it by robbing. That is the way he sees that change can come. Take from those who have. Take from those who have. Because he's probably, they have and I don't have, and that's the way it is. That is the way the system is, so I will just take. Because maybe he didn't have opportunity. If he goes to school, he goes to school because somebody sent you. Most of us go to school because we were sent. That is the system that we were born in. You go to school. But nobody, I think, explained to you that this going to school thing is to really have you prepared for life, for living life. Not for do trigonometry and algebra and things that you have to take exam, but then that is what is taught to you in school, and that is the priority. Your parents, they bolster that thought. Your parents, they tell you, study your trigonometry, study your this, study all kind of subjects that they don't know why. Then they force you for studying. And you don't know why neither at that point. Many of us didn't know that we would not use the trigonometry. We were studying it, but nobody explained. Maybe they explained the 90 degrees and the 360 degrees and the angles. Yes, we knew the basics, but when you begin to get into the calculus and so, okay, you have people who studied that to the PhD level, and maybe then go into atoms and science and NASA. Yes, it is a useful thing for a few people, but more generally when it is being taught, nobody explains what that can really do with your life. And that's the system again. That's the system. The teachers are in the system. So I think it takes explaining to more people, letting more people understand and become aware of the system, and then getting them to want to change it, because not everybody want to change it because they don't understand that it's something that can be changed. They think, and I want dead there. I want dead like this. So the first thing is to make them aware that this thing not have to be like that, but they have to come to that understanding themselves without any judgment of anybody. They have to understand it themselves. Maybe I should stop here and give somebody else a chance.
It's 7:48. I must say, to hear from the youth and the elder, to drop some wisdom tonight.
Yeah.
We have another 12 minutes.
I want to thank Sister Fitz for her contribution. My key takeaway from that is
let me hear what you take away, because I don't know what I dropped. I was just talking, and so make I hear if anybody pick any sense out of what I just said.
I think you said exactly a realization, something that I'm coming to realize, to my own realization with. You go to school not necessarily to pass and get good grades. You go to school to learn life skills and to prepare yourself to face the world. Right? And that was my takeaway, that stop the beat the in my head because it go away on 50 or 60. But more so, assess the child to see if the child they understand those if he or she is grasping the kind of skills and the kind of knowledge that you want need to adapt out there, regardless of what he or she chooses to do, whether they're going to business on their own or whether they go to work for somebody. That should be the priority, not walking out of the classroom with one ear. And so that to me the key, because I really feel, I look for myself and I said, damn, I think I waste a lot of my damn life, half of my life the freedom with school, when in the use. So if I only gonna learn this skill sets that I need to be able to survive and make a life, I would have had an earlier jump start in a life to do what I really want to do. And I wouldn't be here dealing with one 8 to 5 and the work for an employer that for whom I don't really want to work for. I really want to be my own boss. And I think that had I given up 8 years of my education and dedicate the first 8 years to prepare me for how they should have prepare me rather than the try pass one at the time at B and a C and then try get in a one top-notch college and then sit so much CXCs. That was the priority to prepare me to face life out here. So that was my takeaway from the comments, Sister Chris.
Brother Hubert, good night.
Hi, Sister Yaya. Good night. I'm here listening. We didn't have much to contribute to this discussion. I think it's been quite enlightening so far. What I hear is what I concur with. And I believe that people have said what really and truly I do believe in myself. But at the end of the day, it has to do with empowerment. Yeah. And I think that somebody mentioned earlier, this whole question of the mandatory vaccine now. And even though I'm myself vaccinated, I don't see the need for us I don't agree at all with the mandatory aspect of it. I think that there have to be much more perhaps inducements for people to come to that realization that they need to be vaccinated. And so I don't quite agree at all with the fact that people are now being mandated. Well, not quite, because they say you can't go to stores, no? But really the effect of it is such that you are basically mandated to take a vaccine. And you know, I agree with the vaccine. I've done it myself. I think it's really passing a certain limit, which I think we shouldn't really go beyond, though. Yeah.
I don't think that it will be passed. I don't think that he will prepare that essay. I might think it is a temperature check going on. And the same way how I didn't think that they would pass the 11th Amendment. I didn't think that it would happen. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that this is going to happen. I think it is a temperature check, even though he has said that two countries in the Caribbean have passed it. He said, I haven't checked to see if it's really so. Guyana and Jamaica.
And then this is the way, if you look at other countries, today I think briefly I was in a business and it said that the federal, it's being said in the United States that federal workers will be mandated to take the vaccine. Now people are pushing back. I had a Zoom meeting with some sisters and brothers in the UK today from the Central American Black Organization, and I asked them who were the different representatives from country in the region. And most of them were from Honduras. And I'm like, well, the Central American Black Organization represents Black people. What the rest of Black people left in the region? And one of the reasons why most of the people are left from Honduras, because the UK rule is, if you get vaccinated, you only could enter the UK if you get vaccinated in the UK or the United States. If you get vaccinated anywhere else, you can't enter the United Kingdom. So I'm saying the world is changing, and even, so that's all I'm saying. They're not unique to Belize. And so we have to pay attention here. No, we don't fall foot. If states do it, good chance we can do it too.
Well, he has already told us that Jamaica and Guyana has done it. And so, but I think that they might be looking at the political expediency, because this will definitely have a backlash. I mean, one of their supporters, strong supporters of him, somebody who said, and I get information where I shouldn't even get for pass to him. I post something where he never want to post and tell me post, and she just rattle off all the things that she has done for him. And she's saying, if he ever pass that, like hell will pay and da. And I might think that it will have a big backlash. And so if they care about people and their government and their party and everything, the politics might stop them. because it will have a big backlash.
Melina, your young people understand anything about it?
Yes, on both spectrums. I honestly can't gauge who is more for or against because, all we have is social media engaging it. It seems like there's the same amount on both sides. I would actually want to see what are the general consensus saying, off of social media, what is the reality? Are more people against it or not? In my opinion, I am for it. I'm not for really having it being mandated. I'm not happy that it came to that decision, but I see the reasoning behind it.
And the point is, the Constitution gives them the right, the leeway. It's only because governments and states don't normally want their people to be fighting against them. Because I remember one of the things when I was studying, the teacher telling us that they can legislate that all men should wear hats. They can legislate that everybody should walk naked. They can legislate anything. I don't know who all heard you have the group that Zenaida heads, the Belizean Rights, something. And I don't know if you all heard her take on it, what they are thinking of doing. Okay, you want us to only enter public buildings if we can prove that we are vaccinated. So we can't enter public buildings because we are not vaccinated. So we are not going to pay taxes. They are planning on not paying taxes. The boycott of all the businesses that say that you have to have. And what else did she say? But these are things that they are contemplating, which if that is indeed done, would have an effect. That would have an effect. So
the question is how many of them feel that way? That they would.
She's saying that today there was an avalanche of persons calling her or them from all walks of life. And when people were telling them to step up, whatever you had planned, because apparently they had things planned, but they were quiet. She's saying that people are urging them to step up and do what you have in your mind.
I did see a
7:58.
Sorry.
So out of this, what is the conclusion, of all this talk tonight?
Well, as I've said before, what is novel about this Thursday night reasoning is that we meet every Thursday night, we do research, we reason, which similar to what you had said in the 60s, Muslim had discussion circles. So the intention is that you get new information, different information, new interpretation. You go, you sit with it, how you can use it, you share it with others. But definitely, and each person share what their takeaway was. The importance of understanding how is it that we came to think the way we think, why the structure is the way it is, how it impacts our lives, what it may take to change it, and the consistency of it, and that it's going to be a process.
What I would want to see is just, and what I will say is, we have said it numberless times, there's the education system changing.
Yeah. I had a question about that, and I don't know if
changing from this top down, even a simple thing like, I have heard teachers who have taught abroad, and I can't say that I have heard any local teacher, maybe one, students evaluating teachers. One simple thing like that. Students given the opportunity to say what they think of their teacher. I have been told by local teachers that other local teachers would say, what? Like, never, never. Students. And I would have want to say the education system change, and that should lead into what happens in the home. That should lead into the home. I mean, if you have people who grow up with a different education, when they become parents, then they should encourage their children to express themselves. Express yourself.
It's 8 o'clock, folks. People have power, not willingly give up their power. And the church state system, not to try release that. That I just really I understand not possibly no. I just to say you have to know where you're going up against and be strategic and determined to make long-term sacrifices for that happen. Because I'm not just the educate, we talk the church state. We talk about people after life. So you see people, they kill people, and what I say, oh, pray to God about it. They kill their people, they kill their children like HMH.
It's a church-state system, but from what I observe, the spiritual people hardly have anything to do with the schooling. You know, it is church-state in title, but the teachers who are in those classrooms have the power. They can
up to the union.
They can craft what they are teaching. Even if you have a curriculum where they're not a curriculum the way you want. And I think people have to step out of the box. You, the first-time children, so you have them under your control. And I have heard teachers say that the curriculum said that they're supposed to teach this, but for that period, we never talk about that at all. I told the children about life, living life, and that is what they spoke about for the 45 minutes. So the curriculum could get to what the mix it want to say. People have to be courageous and brave, but they have to be convinced that what
you might gone off, Muscle. You might gone off. I not hear you. Your mic get off, Muscle.
Your mic, you accidentally clicked on your mute.
and I'm saying that they must tell me that it's time to shut up. So
yes. That 2 minutes after I will try to finish at 8 o'clock. But I'm definitely continue this conversation. I like the proposal, Muslim, from what you said. I would say the union would definitely have to be organized at the Belize Teachers Union. And so that's why it's so important. I'm going to tell other people about this space, invite other people, share it with other people from YouTube. Thanks so much for being with us tonight. Melina, tell more young people. Thanks everyone for being here. Enjoy the 3-day weekend. Make good choices. COVID-19 is real. One love.